A good game is like a good cup of tea. Everything has to come together to make it just right. A game has to balance a story, coding, graphics, handling, and much more. With tea, it's about the water temperature, the brand, the steeping time, the heat. So much to have a comfy, cozy experience. I'm your host, Nolan Duncan, and I want to talk about the games that are comfy and cozy to relax to, even if they aren't traditionally comfy. I decided to challenge myself for this episode. Instead of ramble after ramble because I'm covering a game I know, I wanted to discuss a game I don't know a lot about. In fact, I've never played this game, which might make it hard for me to discuss, but do not fear, there's a lot of research I put into this one. It might sound surprising, but I've never played Stardew Valley before. The hit farming simulator from 2016 is a cult classic rivaling other comfy games like Animal Crossing. To many, it's a perfect game. The game began development under the name of Sprout Valley, created by American indie game designer Eric Barone, otherwise known as Concerned Ape, which is what I will refer to him going forward. Concerned Ape wasn't able to get a job in the game industry after he graduated college in 2011, instead having to work as an usher at the Paramount Theater in Seattle. The development started because he wanted to improve his skills as a programmer, but also wanted to tap into his artistic side. Being a Harvest Moon fan, he believed the series had gotten worse. Concerned Ape wanted something different. He couldn't find any fan game that gave him what he wanted, and decided to do it all himself. Stardew, in essence, is every problem Concerned Ape had with Harvest Moon solved, and everything he wanted from one game wrapped in a nice little box. Concerned Ape was the sole developer of the game, creating everything: pixel art, music, sound effects, story, and even dialogue. In fact, if you want to make your own Stardew, most of the tools are readily available. All of the music and sound effects were made using the digital audio workstation Reason Studios, and all of the pixel art was made using the software Paint.net. Even to this day, he is the only one working on the game, or at least it was until recently when he started having a team help with updates. The game took 4 years to develop. Concerned Ape has discussed in the past how he could spend anywhere up to 10 or more hours a day working on it, and even restarted the entire project a few times. In fact, while the game was originally programmed in C# using the Microsoft XNA framework, he moved over to using the Monogame C# software in 2021 because it allowed the game to access more RAM. When figuring out how to publish the game, Concerned Ape considered a few spots. Initially, he wanted to use Xbox Live Indie Games because it was easy to publish through that, but he eventually settled on Steam. The game was officially announced in September 2012 using Steam Greenlight to gauge interest. Concerned Ape began fully devoting time to the development when the game received a lot of community support. For most developers at this point, they would start using Steam's early access features, but Concerned Ape didn't. For those unaware, early access is the ability for a developer to provide players with access to early versions of their game. My basic understanding is that a developer with even half a brain will use the feature as a way to A, make some extra dough to add more funding to the game's development, and B, get genuine feedback on what could and should be improved. Yet Concerned Ape didn't, and let it be known that half a brain comment was purely for comedy's sake. Based off of how successful Stardew has been, I think Concerned Ape has maybe an extra brain in there with how smart he's been with it. Throughout my research, there's been one thing consistent about Concerned Ape. It's even present in another project he's began called Haunted Chocolatier, as even that project does not have plans to feature early access. What I'm noticing is that Concerned Ape is very well concerned, pun intended, about the quality of the game. In fact, he's even talked about how he doesn't like releasing content until everything is just right. We can see this in the game's post-release updates, in which they seem sporadic, with no real timeline other than it's ready when it's ready. In fact, in April of 2015, he even told fans he would only release the game when he felt it was feature complete. I'm mixed on that approach personally. While it is nice that he only wants the best for his players, I think it takes away a lot of prime time to make sure you can craft the best experience possible from the start, which he makes up for it by consistently providing bug fixes. But back to the development history. Around 2013, Concerned Ape was approached by Finn Bryce, the director of the British video game developer and publisher Chucklefish. For the most part, Chucklefish simply was offering to help publish and support the game. Concerned Ape was still the only developer. What Chucklefish did was that it stepped in and provided site hosting and setup for the development wiki. Eventually, Chucklefish did provide help with some development, but it was mainly helping with foreign language translation and multiplayer support. The game officially released on February 26, 2016 for Steam and GOG.com. Concerned Ape continued to work on the game, providing updates, correcting bugs, and glitches. The game was a success, and I mean a success. While I was researching, I actually ran across a Reddit thread where people were actually debating if the game should still have its indie tag on Steam because of how popular the game has become, especially since it has sold over 30 million copies. On the website Metacritic, the game sits at a Metascore of 89 with a user score of 8.8. The game has 2 scores on IGN. The original 2016 review gave the game an 8.8, while the 2024 review that looked at the game after 8 years of updates bumped the game's score up to a 10 due to how much better the various updates made an already great game greater. Most Steam users recommend the game. Some of my favorite reviews are Bestest Game by Lilypad. Another reviewer said, discover it on your own. Don't Google, experience it, by Minonshin. Another review read, I love this game. It's my favorite pastime. It's very cozy. I love building my little farm while my BF slays monsters in the mines, from Coffee Ghost 56. Another reviewer said, good game, by Valen. And my favorite review, I like to hit rocks, from Cat. It's been nominated for numerous awards, even winning the 2016 Golden Joystick Breakthrough Award, as well as the 2017 Steam Awards The World is Grim Enough, Let's All Just Get Along Award. Truly a prestigious award. Looking back at Metacritic, most reviews are positive. The top 3 critic reviews are as follows. Gamer.nl says Stardew Valley is a fine, smart farm simulation game. It is slow and it involves a lot of daily tasks, but in Stardew Valley there is something ingenious about those tasks. GameGrin said, don't start this game if you value relationships, your job, your social life, and having free time. Stardew Valley will take all of that away from you, but it's okay, because it's a great game. RPG has the longest review yet, saying, Stardew Valley is without a doubt the best game in the Harvest Moon genre in many years. It has a subtle message about what it means to live a good life, and to flourish through a combination of hard work and human connection. The Harvest Moon games all basically boil down to managing a mix of time, tasks, and metrics, and recent entries in the series have relied heavily on exploiting a new gameplay gimmick with each iteration. In one, it's crafting structures for the town. In another, it's trading with foreign economies. The problem with this approach is that once these gimmicks are exhausted, all the houses built or all the goods traded, the games feel hollow. Stardew Valley succeeds by delivering a robust experience that does not merely rely on watching a meter go up. It has something to say and says it well, while never abandoning the core gameplay that attracted players in the first place. Of all the critic scores, the lowest I saw was a 73 from Killscreen, reading, despite all odds, it seems Stardew Valley is a different game than the one it mimics, and a pretty fun, different game at that. In terms of user scores, well, it's user scores. One thing you'll notice is that critics are typically going to put someone who understands that genre of game in charge of making the review. Even if they aren't good at a specific type of game, they try not to let their bias for certain genres show. 88% of user reviews were positive, 8% were mixed, and 4% were negative. The negative reviews are interesting, to say the least. It's mainly people claiming the game is overrated or not interesting because of how repetitive it is, which is the whole point of farming simulators if you did not realize. A great example is the user by the name of Coddle C. Dog Lover, who gave the game a 3 and said, quote, "I hate how it's just a cycle, and how the social mechanic is just gifting. It just feels wrong," unquote. My favorite of the negatives is from Pipes, who gave the game a 2 and said, quote, "Snortview Valley Coma Simulator, a game for people that find Animal Crossing a bit too taxing," unquote. That one was actually incredibly funny, and it took me a few takes to read that one. What I will recommend is that while critics will give the scores out, they may or may not have a bias or sponsorship. On the other hand, I think the best user reviews are the ones that are mixed. These are the people that recognize the good and the bad and even provide some nuance, such as the user David C. Basuk, who gave the game a 6 and said, quote, "Tragically, I was not able to grasp the overwhelming acclaim that this game has received from every corner of the interweb. I cannot deny that it is a simple, charmingly simple game, but I was not able to derive that fabled obsessive infatuation I all have told about. Days are short, yet things move slow. Perhaps it is my history of indulging in fast-paced, min-maxing games that imbues me with anxiety where others feel relaxation. I loathe to loathe, but I fear I cannot raise my rating any higher. Perhaps in another life, I may fathom the universal appeal, a universe I sadly do not exist in," unquote. Another mixed review came from Egizaman, who gave the game a 7 and said, quote, "Relaxing and addictive, but lacks structure and long-term challenge for some players, like myself," unquote. User ZophieB gave the game a 7 and said, quote, "This game is entertaining and provides hours of fun. However, my only issue is it gets boring fast once you've discovered most things. Even once you get into using mods, the game is no longer as enjoyable as when you first started playing. They need regular content updates to keep it fun," unquote. This last review puts into perspective what I mean by nuance and knowing when a game just isn't for them. User Brady Herbst 7 gave the game a 7 and said, quote, "Fun, not quite my thing. I get the appeal and can appreciate the game for what it is, but not fully get into it. It's gorgeous, the sprite work and pixel art looks great, and the characters are simplistic while charming, and this is one of the only games where the farming aspect actually works and is fun. Great game, just not my thing," unquote. I won't cover the positive reviews because it's going to be similar to Steam's reviews, a lot of glazing and how much they love the game, without any actual substance. I don't think you want to hear "I love hitting rocks" over and over. They aren't as bad as I make them sound, though. They really are as simple as "I love this game and everyone should play it." After all, this game is the farming simulator, so let's stop looking at reviews and start looking at the actual game. The game is played from a top-down perspective and is open-ended. Before I explain any further, I'll go ahead and introduce the kinda not co-host for this episode, primarily because you'll hear her voice a lot, but not like super consistently. You heard her in our first episode. It's Chloe Peacock, the secretary of the Dead Podcaster Society. Is it a little bit of nepotism to turn to my friends? In my defense, I don't actually know a lot of people who play Stardew Valley. Chloe herself hasn't really been playing for super long, only really about almost a year.
I bought Stardew Valley this past summer. I bought it right before I left for a trip, and I got hooked immediately. I played so much of it over the summer as well as over winter break.
In Chloe's opinion, the game's controls are responsive, at least on Windows.
It feels good. It took a little bit to get the hang of the controls. I know on a computer it just uses regular WASD, and you need a mouse for it. But you can play it without a mouse, but the controls feel good. It feels good to play. Stardew Valley can be played on a lot of different platforms. I know you can play them on home consoles, on PCs, even on mobile. So I think your experience with controls is going to vary a lot based on what device you're playing it on. But at least on Windows 11, I think it controls well.
The plot is very simple. Main character leaves their corporate job and inherits the family farm in Pelican Town. From there, you farm, mine, gather resources, and even befriend the different NPC residents of the town. There's a lot to do in this game, and honestly, I'd rather let Chloe explain it.
Stardew Valley is marketed as a farming simulator, but it's so much more. There are, I think it's 6 skills. Farming, foraging, fishing, mining, combat, I think are the main skills. And there are different farm layouts that you can choose at the beginning that are more or less conducive to what you want to focus on. And you can craft items, you can cook food, which helps with the food can help with it can restore health, and it can also help with temporarily boost any of those skills that I listed. And there are just so many items to collect. There's actually I think it's the museum in town where you're, I guess, voluntold to help rebuild the museum's archives of various items, mostly like stones and rocks, gems, and even like dinosaur bones and other artifacts. And so I think that's pretty cool. Usually the traditional gameplay loop looks like, so you start out on the farm. You as the player character are working in the big city, and in Zuzu City, the big city, and you're at this soulless corporate job, and you have breakdown, and then you open a letter your grandpa left you, and he died, and it says, "I've left you this farm in Stardew Valley," and you can name the farm whatever you want. "I've left you this farm in Stardew Valley. Go and it's yours now. Go do with it what you want." And so you move out to the countryside, to Stardew Valley, and there's a town there called Pelican Town. And usually you start off with some seeds, they're parsnips, and the way that that time works is that there are 4 seasons. Each one are a month long: spring, summer, winter, and autumn. And I think each second that passes IRL counts as a minute in game. And so you have energy, and when you start out, you don't have that much energy, so you can't do quite as much. But usually it starts with you farming, and then you might choose to go fishing or mining or foraging to collect more items, and you sell them. So there's you can choose to go to the respective shops and sell them, but most people just put them in the box, and then when it turns over to a new day, you'll get the money for it. And so getting more money will help you upgrade your farmhouse and allow you to buy more things related to combat, fishing, and all those other skills. And so you're trying to make money. So, but sometimes I think about it, it's like, how is this that much different from the soulless corporate job? But anyway, so, and it as the in-game years go on, things change, and usually you want to try and make friends with people, and if you want, you can romance characters, although you don't have to get I don't think you have to 100% the game. And by the third year is usually, I think at the start of the third year, there is I guess the ghost of grandpa rates your farm, like how, I'm not sure what the criteria are, but I've never gotten anything other than you're doing a great job, so that's good. But I guess the goal is to try and get more money so that you can get more things and do more things and see more places and all that stuff. So, and there are various different events throughout the in-game year. There's like an ice fishing competition and a flower dance, where if you've got enough hearts with a character, you can dance with them. Although it's pretty early on in the spring, and I've never been able to get anybody's friendship up high enough to be able to dance with them on the first one. And you can eventually get married to any of the, I can't remember how many, but there are bachelors and bachelorettes, and you can get married to them and whatnot, and you can eventually have kids with them as well. But yeah, so that's the core of it. Get stuff, make money, get more stuff.
It's an endless gameplay loop. Even though there are credits to be viewed, it really is a game you keep playing until you're bored with it.
You can have multiple save files, so I wouldn't necessarily call it it kind of is restarting. But I don't know if I would say there's an end. I think when Grandpa comes and rates your farm at the beginning of the third year, I think the credits roll. So I think if you were doing an any percent, you'd probably consider that to be the end. But you can just keep on playing for as long as you want. You can decorate your farm and whatnot. You can build buildings on your farm, and so you can keep playing as long as you want. Although most people consider it to be the beginning of the third year the end. Although there is post-game, I guess there's new stuff that becomes available after that. It takes a very long time to 100% it. There's always something more you can be doing. There's so many things to do, and new things to do keep being added.
It's that endlessness that keeps Chloe coming back. In fact, blogger Sam Woodington wrote that one perk about the game is how it never forces a player to do things they don't want to do. The game allows players to get a hold of every item either through the traditional methods such as farming and fishing and whatnot, or you can even buy the items through the merchants at the markets. Don't want to fish? You don't have to. Of course, there are other things to do besides farming. Get married, have a kid, go mining, a lot of stuff. In the caves, there's also monsters you have to fight, which, just like everything, is as optional as you want it to be. Multiplayer was eventually added, and it's one of the few features that is dependent on which platform you use. For most people, the multiplayer is perfectly fine, though some do claim that specific consoles kinda suck. Now, before we go any further, I think it's time for a tea break. For this episode, Chloe and I sat down to enjoy a herbal tea, specifically the brand Traditional Medicines Throat Coat Blend in the licorice flavor. Traditional Medicinals was founded in 1974 after herbalist Rosemary Gladstar met community activist and environmentalist Drake Sadler met in the 60s. It was the first U.S. manufacturer to market a range of organically and domestically grown herbal products. The company is into activism, supporting local farmers and rural communities. In 2010, Traditional Medicinals became one of the first companies to receive a B Corp certification, which means a third-party company called B Lab is holding Traditional Medicinals to a certain standard. I don't know much about this brand, but I have a lot of respect for them and their dedication to environmentalism. I say that because I need to say something nice about them because the licorice flavor wasn't my, you could say, cup of tea. I'll let the following audio explain it and our thoughts on the flavor best.
We're moving on to the tea because I took a sip and I'm like, So, can you would you like to explain the tea?
Yeah, so
'Cause she brought it today. She brought it.
what I have here is traditional medicinals organic throat coat. And so throat coat is, it appears that traditional medicinals has a registered trademark of the name throat coat, but I doubt it started with this company. It's a common tea that's used especially among vocalists, and the main thing that it has is slippery elm, marshmallow root, and licorice root. I think it's root. And it's meant to help with sore throats, and it puts kind of a coat on your throat, for lack of a better word.
It did something to me. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, it's an interesting flavor.
I can't tell if I like this or not.
I kind of felt the same way the first time I had it, but
I don't know if I want to finish it.
You don't have to.
I took my sip and I'm like...
Also...
Because, like, on one hand, I am, like, feeling sick right now. Like, not, like, sick, but, like, something going on up in the nasal area. Yeah. And, like, there's, like, this, like, kind of, like, I wouldn't say burning, but, like, something there. Like, a little... Whoo,
yeah.
like a little kick. I'm just like, huh?
It probably... So, I don't know if you want to keep this in, but when Nolan and I got to the studio today, we found that the kettle was gross, and it had...
that might also be because we used sink water.
Yeah, the...
Bathroom sink water. Not toilet water. We used bathroom sink water.
The bottom of the kettle had what I can only describe as health hazard colored substances. So, but it's definitely supposed to be a much darker color. I ran the bathroom water as hot as it could go, but it still wasn't that hot. Yeah. It's kind of a urine yellow color right now, and it should be a much darker color. That's
not because we use toilet water. I trust Chloe. I highly doubt she would do that. But it's also interesting because this is my first time like consciously drinking not like soup. So it's nice not having my tongue burning hot. But I'm also over here like, huh? I don't know how to explain it other than like, I know you read off the ingredients list, but I'm like, that feels like very pomegranate,
Pomegranate?
I don't know how to explain it. Like,
the
very fruity.
So, licorice root, slippery elm bark, marshmallow root, and then it's got a proprietary blend. So I guess that means
weird,
specific to this brand. Yeah. Wild cherry bark, fennel, fruit, cinnamon bark, and orange peel. The orange peel might be what you're picking up.
Yeah, I'm getting a very fruity taste to it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really... It suggests that it's particularly good with honey, but I don't think it needs any more sweetening because I think it's the marshmallow root that makes it sort of naturally sweet.
Yeah, there's this almost like sugary kick.
Yeah.
But like it's not like right there in the front. It's like very, very much water, leaf water, and then suddenly there. And I think that's my problem with this is like, because it's not in the front of my tongue like the rest of the drink will hit. Suddenly in the back of my mouth, I'm getting this like almost sugar taste, and I'm like,
yeah, that's definitely the marshmallow.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I can see why you like it.
I'm not a big fan of licorice, but as you can see, I at least tried to enjoy it. It really was nice for my nasal issues that day, but by Jove, was it a weird flavor. I really do think the sink water messed with the flavor, but also that fruitiness really punches you in the beginning. I'm not... Well, actually, it's not that it punches you in the beginning. It's more so a kind of a slimy. It's still liquidy, still very like water, but like kind of feels a little slime like, but not like feel, more so like taste like how the feel. I don't know how to explain this other than that initial sip, like it felt like the way liquid slime feels, if that makes sense. However, I do want to actually give points to it for being that like slimy smooth to drink. But getting back to the interview, Chloe drinks this regularly enough because of a side job of hers.
I drink it because I am technically a professional singer. I'm a choral scholar, and I sometimes this hasn't been happening quite as much now that I've been moved down to alto. But when I was still singing up in soprano consistently, it would just wear on my voice and my throat, and I thought this would help, and I'm not sure if it actually does, but maybe psychosomatically it does.
At least for me, like I mentioned earlier, I've got something going on in my nasal region, and it's definitely helping.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, this is very unique taste.
Yeah. It's kind of an acquired taste, but
yeah,
I think it'll grow on you.
It's one of those. I don't think I would make a whole cup of it.
Yeah.
Hold up. Let me get a whiff of this.
I'll give you.
It's not got a strong taste.
Yeah.
I mean, taste. It's a very like.
Very aromatic.
I'm not picking up. Hold up. Let me.
Well, you also said you've got nasal stuff going on.
No,
so
well.
Too.
Very. This is the most non-tea drinking thing I've said. It's got a very leafy tree.
Like herbaceous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Like it doesn't really smell like a lot of teas I've drank.
Yeah, and that's probably because it is herbal tea, so it doesn't have actual tea leaves. It's just herbs. So, like, tea is a specific plant, and the leaves are harvested, and that's where we get your usual black tea, sencha, all that stuff. But it's weird that it's also called tea.
It really did lack a smell, which isn't bad, and probably was because I was feeling sick. Herbal tea is a whole different world from typical tea making. Instead of the tea leaves, herbal tea is a mixture of herbs, spices, and other plant material that are used in herbal medicines and folk medicines. It's made using anything from the roots to the stems to the leaves to even the seeds of the plant. Other than that, they work like most other teas. Pour the hot water over the tea, let it brew. Because herbal tea is plant-focused, you can get caffeinated infusions and even psychoactive infusions. You do have to be careful, as some herbs are not safe for human consumption, so please do be careful if you plan to create your own brews. Now, while we did use herbal tea for this show, Chloe does drink more traditional teas. She's a big fan of Earl Grey and shared her go-to for preparing it.
I haven't made tea in a while, but usually I go for Earl Grey, but I just don't have any at my apartment right now. Earl Grey is definitely my favorite. I usually get Bigelow because that's one of the most common consistent brands you see in America, but Quick would probably, say like, oh, Bigelow's trash, all that stuff. But
I will make sure to ask him.
But I'll usually microwave the water when I'm at home, because we don't have a kettle. So I'll microwave the water, and then Quick would probably hate me for that too. Whatever. I'll microwave the water, and then I'll put the tea bag in, and usually follow the whatever instructions are on the bag, because I used to just put the tea bag in, wait a little bit, and then keep the bag in as I was drinking it. But I've found that because of something called tannins that are released when the tea, especially when it's in hot water, it gets bitter real quick if you leave it in longer than is prescribed. So I now follow the instructions on the bag.
Get yourself a kettle.
At my apartment, we have a kettle. It's the kind that you put on the stove.
Oh.
And I use that very consistently for making coffee. I used it this morning. But, yeah, and one thing that's interesting that I noticed with Bigelow's teas, on their regular Earl Grey tea, I believe it recommends you steep it for 2 minutes, but on their caffeine-free Earl Grey tea, they recommend you steep it for 4 minutes. And I just think that's interesting. Now, sometimes with the Earl Grey, most often when I'm drinking tea, I just drink it black. But maybe that's just my American sensibilities, especially with being used to drinking iced tea. But sometimes with Earl Grey, I'll make what's commonly referred to as a London fog. So it's basically an Earl Grey latte. Sometimes I'll just put a little bit of milk in. Sometimes we've got one of those cheap little milk frothers, and I'll froth it. And I'll maybe put like 1 packet of Splenda in it. It usually doesn't need that much, because if you put too much Splenda in it, it'll overpower everything else. From what I know about herbal teas are tea without the tea, if that makes any sense. It's they're drinks that are made the same or in a similar way to tea. So they're herbs, and sometimes even things like orange peel or just other elements, and you put them in a tea bag and you steep it in hot water. And some people will debate on whether or not that can be actually called tea. I don't really care either way. But there are so many different kinds of herbal teas. Chamomile is a big one. Chamomile it's like a flower. I think it's related to the daisy. That one's got kind of a grassy taste. And then there's mint tea. Sometimes people do actually have tea leaves in that. Sometimes it is just mint leaves. I've even seen people do strawberry leaves for the tea. And so, or use things like rose hips, or just the possibilities for herbal tea are endless. There's so many different kinds of things that you can put in hot water, and then it'll make the water taste like it.
For Chloe, it's not just the actual tea that's relaxing, it's the process of creating it that brings a sense of calm.
It's warm, and it's comforting, and sometimes it's not just the tea itself. Sometimes it's the ritual of making it that is relaxing. I know it's the same way for coffee in the morning, but just having it's like, you're doing something, you're making something, even if it's just something small. It's like, and maybe it's taking a break from whatever schoolwork you're working on, or something like that. It kind of interrupts your regular activities, and you just get a moment where, it's something else to focus on for that moment, even if it's just a couple minutes that you're taking to make it. And then when you go back to your regular activities, you have something warm and comforting there.
At this point, I would like to introduce our second guest for the show. Her name is Emily Grady. She's a sophomore at Marshall University who is a member of WMUL 88.1 FM's news staff team. Alongside talking about Stardew later, Emily has a strong interest in herbal teas. Her favorite is chamomile, and for her, tea is a calming part of her life.
It's calming. It's very, I can take, for example, chamomile or jasmine at night and, just drink it and be, all nice and relaxed and be able to sleep very easily.
Chloe and Emily both had tips for tea. Chloe's were for all tea, while Emily's was more geared towards herbal. I'll let you hear Chloe's advice on steeping tea.
Don't leave the tea bag in for the whole time. Now, from my experience, that only really applies to tea. Herbal tea is usually fine, especially because oftentimes it has to be steeped a lot longer. I mean, this throat coat recommends you steep it for 10 to 15 minutes, which is insane. It even instructs you to cover it because it'll get cold otherwise. So, you don't really have to follow that with herbal tea. And also, different types of tea need to be are best steeped at different temperatures. Now, these days, a lot of electric kettles will have different settings. So, I don't know the temperatures off the top of my head, but I know for black tea and herbal tea, 212 boiling is fine. But for green tea, I think it's a little bit lower at 185. And then like white tea and hot chocolate, I think, are even a little bit lower than that. So maybe look that up, and that might change it, because when you're adding the heat, it is a chemical process. Especially with tea, there's the tannins that get released, and if you don't like that tea tastes bitter, I've cold brewed tea before. So you can do it in just 1 cup or in a pitcher. Take tea bags, put it in cold water, stick it in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours, and it slowly, it's similar to cold brew coffee, where it's less acidic. You don't get those tannins that get in there and might be abrasive to some people. So just anytime you're cooking, it's chemicals. It's a chemical process. So
Emily had some advice herself on how to bring out the flavor of herbal tea.
I will brew the water in like a coffee machine or in my little boiler kettle, and then pour it over the tea bag, and then add either cream, creamer, milk, or any sort of dairy, and sugar, a lot of it. Prepare it to taste. I add a lot of sugar because I don't like much bitterness, so I add a lot of sugar and a lot of milk to get like a really creamy, sweet flavor that also accompanies like certain herbs too. That's my advice, and honestly, don't be too much of a stickler unless it's like certain teas. Like, I've added like instant creamer to my chamomile so many times. It's not a crime, I promise. It's still super good.
Tea time is almost over, but I will say, the licorice throat coat isn't horrible. What little I did share of my voice during the interview, you might have heard it fluctuate. The throat coat did genuinely help the sinuses, but that weird mixture of flavors creates an odd experience. It probably was because of weird choices in water, as well as the fact the tea wasn't boiling hot. Due to that, I'm giving it a solid 6 out of 10. Some might find it a solid selection, but others might not. Now, with that tea break over, let's take one last look at Stardew Valley. Emily spoke a little bit about why she loves the game. She doesn't play it a lot, primarily playing multiplayer with her friends.
So you own like a co-op farm. You can have 2 different houses, or you can share the same house. It depends on which version you choose. But you work together on the same farm, and I'm pretty sure you can both have like different mates too. Like, not mates, but partners. Forgot the word. I'm pretty sure you can both have different partners too, but you work on the farm together. I like the cozy aspect a lot. Like the fact you can just go in and like you can farm and mine and like have like these relationships with these different characters, and you can play with friends and have like that chaos element. It's just so fun. It's the fact that there's like no real push or like rush to do anything. It's similar to Animal Crossing New Horizons, or really any Animal Crossing game. There's just like that very calm, like there's calm music, it's a slower game, you just go in, you do like your farm work, you talk to people, and there's like no like, oh, you have, like, you do have combat, but it's not like a very like rushed, like intense combat. It's like a very like calm combat. You don't have to combat all the time.
For Chloe, it's the characters in the game that keeps her coming back to Stardew.
I really enjoy getting to know the characters, because there are a lot of different characters within Pelican Town and the surrounding area that you can get to know. There's a friendship and romance mechanic, and I think with each, I know I choose to romance a different character with each save file, but just getting to know the people, they don't feel one-dimensional. They feel like people, you know? And I mean, it's not quite as realistic to only have like 15 to 20 people living in a town, but the characters are pretty fleshed out and are continuing to be fleshed out.
Her favorite is the character Barney.
She's the person who, she owns a ranch, and she sells you farm animals and supplies for that. And she I guess she has custody of her niece, Jas, and who's, I don't know, probably about like somewhere between like 7 and 10. She's a kid. And then her nephew, Shane, who's a grown man, also lives with her. And I don't know, I think she's great. She's very kind and sociable and all that. So there are a lot of characters that like have, I guess, maybe controversy surrounding them, sort of, because they're real people. Like, none of them are perfect. Some of them suck, and some of them have things that are good about them, bad about them, and all that. But I don't know. I really like Marty.
Are there any other characters that you're a big fan of?
I also really like Maru. She is the daughter of the carpenter, Robin, and she's a scientist and an inventor.
It's the realness to the characters that bring them to life.
Like, everybody's got their own motivations and their own, situations that are happening, and depending on how you choose to interact with the characters, the story will progress differently. So if, and I mean, you can become friends with everybody in the village, but you can also, I guess, not become friends with them. God, that sounds so dumb. Why can't I say this eloquently? Also, they'll treat you differently depending on how far along you are in the friendship process. Like, there's one character, Haley. She's mean to you before you become friends, before you become good friends, and she's even meaner to you if you're a guy. So I think that's interesting. And there's another character, Linus, who is he's kind of a mountain man. He sort of lives in a tent in the mountains, and he likes living that way, and he's kind of ostracized by the rest of the town, and he doesn't really trust you because he's been treated so poorly by everybody else. But then you slowly become friends with him, and he'll give you like fish or crafting recipes and all that stuff. And so I think that's really neat.
Chloe finds this game relaxing because of its ability to immerse players in its world and pull one away from the troubles of daily life.
I guess it sort of takes you, it's immersive, and it takes you out of whatever is going on in real life. So it's just like pretty much any game, it's relaxing. And, there are some like time constraints for things, but you don't have to do anything you don't want to, in a sense. And also, it's got great music, and the visuals are very, the visuals are kind of, I don't know if I'd call it 8-bit or 16-bit. It's probably 16-bit.
32-bit maybe.
Yeah. Something like that. They're very chunky. Done purposefully so. The game came out in 2016. I don't know if the visuals were done that way specifically to allow it for optimization, or it probably was for aesthetic purposes. Even though I don't really have much experience with games that have that style of visuals, it still somehow feels very nostalgic.
Stardew Valley is the game you think of when you hear comfy, cozy games to play. Just hearing from others has me wanting to play this game, and get this, it's only $15. I think Stardew is one of those games that proves that quality doesn't need to come from a massive AAA piece, especially when most games are running $70 to $80. I think more games like Stardew are needed. Personally, I can't rate this game proper. However, I can say that if you are looking for something comfy to play, this is the go-to. Chloe spoke about how fun it is to use the different save files to have multiple runs so you can romance different characters, and of course, Emily made a great point about the multiplayer adding to the experience. Stardew Valley truly is a comfy game.